Well, welcome to this edition of True Talk tonight, and we have just a fascinating guest tonight. I've been excited all week about having her here with us. She's no stranger to the city of Atlanta. In fact, she's a staple here in our city. I think that she's a national treasure here in our city. She's a legend. She's a trailblazer. She's a civil rights activist. She's been a television executive for a number of years and a trailblazer. I'm just sitting here rhapsodizing and soliloquizing as to how on earth I would even just do partial justice to the incredible gifts and talents that she has, a woman of grace and dignity who carries herself in such a regal way that it makes all people, no matter who you are, proud just to be able to have her. Will you welcome the inimitable, incomparable Xernona Clayton? So honored to have you with us tonight. Wow.
Oh, I'm the one. I'm so excited. I hope I'll say the right words, speak plainly.
You know, you'll probably say more things on accident than others can say on purpose. Tell me, because you probably knew my father before I knew him. How did you all meet? Tell me about your meeting with him.
I had been in Atlanta exactly 1 week,
Wow.
and I came here to work for Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement. And Dr. King was taking me to lunch down the street from the office to B.B. Beeman's. I remember the name of the place. And there was this nice man coming across the street, and he introduced me, Mr. Bronner, Nathaniel Bronner. Well, there was something about us. I liked him immediately, and obviously he liked me. And we became friends. Wow. Then I met his wife later, and we had something to talk about like every day.
Wow.
I would just run into him, I think on purpose. I'd find out which way he was going, and then I'd go there. But on that note, I must tell you this, that this is an impressive operation you have here.
Wow.
But you know what? I am thrilled for you and your congregation, but I'm not surprised because knowing your father and your mother, as well as I did, I knew that all of you would be successful at what you did.
Wow.
Your father and mother taught you boys to be men.
Yes.
While you were still boys.
Yes. Yes.
They taught you to be courteous,
yes.
gentlemanly in your pursuits.
Yes.
And that's been the secret, I think, to your successes.
Oh,
and I'm proud to know you.
Oh, wow.
Proud to know you. And loved your dad. Loved your dad.
Well, you grew up the daughter of a Baptist minister yourself.
Yes.
What was that experience like, being a PK?
Well, it was wonderful because, your dad's kind of in charge, but he was in charge at home too as well. But at 12 years old, I must tell you this, that I learned a lesson. I learned many lessons from my dad, but at 12, I had started playing the piano and looked like I was doing fairly well, to the point that he thought I had the maturity now to take on the music department of the church, play for the choir. And so as a youngster, I was, acting like I had some sense and some sense of responsibility. And so I trained the choir and had a good time, had a good choir. But this one Sunday, one of our friends, her father had a business in Tulsa. Now, I lived in Muskogee, which is a small town. Tulsa was a larger city. And it's sort of like going to New York. She said, my dad has to go over for business, and he said, I could ask you all to go with me. And we said, oh, well, yeah. So we asked, mother was at home, and we asked mother, could we go? And she said yes, but she assumed that we had already checked with daddy. Well, we went off, had a good time. Well, I didn't see my father until late that night. And my father said, well, did you have a good time? I thought he wanted confirmation. So he said, oh, yes, Daddy, we had a great time. And it went on to explain all the fun we had. So he said, young lady, I noticed he wasn't smiling at all, but he said, I want us to imagine a scale. And I'm going to put you on the side of the scale. And over here, I'm going to tell you what happened. He said, and see, we had 20 choir members. And my father ended up, like all 20 of those people had a spouse, so that's 40 people. And all those people had 4 children. I don't know how he came up with that. And then when he got through adding people, and then the congregation, then he, the minister, he said, now look at this scale. We had, you, one person, had a good time at the expense and inconvenience of all of these people. He said, young lady, let me tell you, he pointed, and I hated him to point that finger in my face. I wasn't going to do nothing about it, of course, but he said, young lady, you got to have a word. You got to have a sense of responsibility. And let me tell you something, from this day forward, if you tell somebody you're going to meet them at high noon to count blue cars, you better show up. Your word has to have some meaning. And the sense of responsibility must be yours to adhere to. I was 12 years old. To this day, I've never been late for anything in my life from that point to this day.
Wow.
And listen, as a result of that, when I tell the story, everybody knows me as a woman who's on time.
Yes.
And I had some visitors in my office today, and I haven't counted them, but I must have 500 clocks representing my timeliness. I've got them from all over the world. I had some people here from China. They went back and sent me a clock from China, from Korea. So I've been making out pretty well.
Oh, wow. She was an hour early here today.
Yeah.
She is, yes, I love it.
So I'm never late, never late. He said, really, that you're making a nonverbal statement. You're telling people, I don't care about your schedule.
Yes.
I'll show up when I get ready.
Yes.
And he said, you never want to say that, but that's what it means.
Wow.
So I could never say that, so I don't mean it, so I'm not late.
I so agree with that. Oh, that's such a wonderful, valuable principle, because you can never get back your time. And that's why anybody who's ever been to a service here at Word of Faith, they know we never start late. We always start on time.
Yeah.
When you start late, you punish people who were on time, and then you reward people who came late. And I just refuse to do that.
Well, you know what I do? I shut it off if people are late. Let me give you one example there. I got several, but I'll just, in the essence of time, I had an appointment with a man for 10 o'clock in the morning. And 5 after 10, he wasn't there. And 10 after, he still wasn't there. And so I went into my office and got busy. And my secretary said, oh, your appointment is here. And I looked at it and I said, it's 10:25. I didn't know I had a 10:25 appointment. He said, you know, Mr. Jones. I said, no, it was 10 o'clock. She said, well, you're not doing anything. I said, yes, I am. So I said, I'm counting my toes and fingering my nose. It's my time now. It's too late. So I move on. I don't wait for anybody.
I love it. I love it. Wow, what a valuable principle. Yes. Your dad gave you a real gift.
Oh, yes. I still remember it.
Oh, wow. I love that. Now, a lot of people don't know that you are an identical twin.
Yes.
A wonderful sister who you'll meet in heaven. You'll meet in heaven. Zenobia. Tell us about that experience. What was it like growing up as an identical twin?
Well, the one thing you knew, that you always had a friend.
Yes.
You always had a confidant, because, you have secrets. They may not be all that important, but they're important to you.
Yes.
And your sister would keep your secret.
Yeah.
And I would keep hers. And you knew that.
Yes.
But, we talk. We start off talking, answering the same things, and we were just so loving. I mean, we loved each other. And when we were in college, we were studied by the University of Wisconsin, I think it was several years ago, and we were deemed to be the most identical twins in the United States.
Wow.
But we could.
I can believe it, seeing the picture of the two of you.
We could speak each other. We knew what the other person was thinking.
Wow.
We'd take the speech away. We could just do it. It's a great feeling. I still miss her. She's passed away now, but we were close all the years we were living. I mean, she was living, and I still miss her today. Yeah.
You share an experience when you guys were girls, and she sneaked out of the house. Climbed out of the window. Tell us about that.
Where'd you get that story?
Oh.
That was supposed to be a secret. Well, with your twin, you'll just do anything to cover. Well, my mother told us we couldn't go out to the party.
She was a good twin.
Yeah. Well, she's not here now. Yes, I was a good one. But my mother wouldn't allow us to go to the party this night because we had violated some of the rules. So I was going to be the nice one, and I thought she was too. And then she said, listen, I'm going out. Because she had this boyfriend waiting. I don't know what she's going to do. But anyway, she said it was very important. She said, I'm going out. And so we, put our bedclothes on, and we both went to bed. And I said, you really going to sneak out? What are you going to do? And she said, I'm going out the window. And then when I come back, I'm going to rap on the window, and you just sneak over and open the window, and Mother will never know it. Well, we forgot, mothers are smarter than we are. Well, Little went out, and so when she rapped on the window, I was waiting, so I could hear the snap. But my mother heard it first. My mother came into the room, went over to the window. Then my sister says, open it up. Mother said, okay. And then so it was a little off the ground. So Mother put her hands out, and when my sister found out it was my mother's hand, she tried not to come in the window. But my mother whipped her, and I felt the pain also, because. And then I said to her after Mother went to bed, I said, girl, was it worth all that? She said, oh, yes. I didn't ask her what she did, but she said it was worth the whipping. The pain and suffering was worth it. But we stuck together.
Well, and you guys were so close. You told me that you took your twin sister with you on your honeymoon.
Oh, my honeymoon. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, she liked my boyfriend, intended husband. He was very nice, and he always included her, so she liked him okay. But, we just lived together all these years and, managed the house. We lived, like a married couple almost, And so we had each other only. And now I'm going to, I wanted to get married, but gee, to leave her, I just felt sad. And she now is losing me, so she felt sad. So we were both sad people at a wedding. Can you imagine? But the husband I chose was a man who had sensitivity. He understood our closeness.
Yes.
And he had already bought her a ticket.
Wow.
To go with us to New York. That's where we went. And then I said to somebody and explained this, I said, so we had so much fun, we ended up having a threesome. And I said, well, not really. But the three of us were together having a good time in New York.
Wow.
I had to explain it real fast. But,
Oh, I love it. Wow. Now, you were involved in civil rights for a long time, serving with the Chicago Urban League. And,
yes.
You've had some wonderful experiences there, and then working closely with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta, with the SCLC here in Atlanta. But I'm most curious to know how you built relationship with the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan and eventually got him to renounce the Klan. How in the world did a preacher's daughter connect with a racist leader of the Ku Klux Klan in the racist South?
Well, a lot was riding on our meeting. The mayor, who was Ivan Allen at the time, we had a project called the Model Cities Program, and that program was designed to help poor people in neighborhoods in South Atlanta. Well, the pattern was to have an all-white neighborhood that was poor, all black, and then one that was not so poor and an all black. And then he said, he thought I did well with groups, and he said, Miss Clayton, I want you to, be the head of the groups. And he said, but I got one problem for you that you'll have to overcome, and said, one of the members of the group is a Ku Klux Klan member. And I don't want you to be afraid. I said, well, I don't know what to look like anyway. After I've seen me in white sheets. So I didn't know what a Klansman looked like. But I did meet him. And Reverend, do you know, every day he came to my office to visit and give crazy talk. Like, Miss Clayton, do you know how many colored people own their own homes in Detroit? And I said, no, sir, I don't. Do you know how many colored people own their homes in Yazoo, Mississippi? No, I don't. Well, let me tell you. And he would take the figures to work for him. By his example, there'll be more black people in Mississippi who are homeowners than the ones who now have flown to the north for freedom and a better life. So his moral of his story was, see, they do better in servitude. Well, here's the thing. I thought I had good sense. And I knew to argue with him was not going to be the way we were going to make this thing work. I had my opinions, and his was diabolically opposed. But trying to talk to him with some reason was my approach. So we never fussed or anything. He was a tall, handsome man, physical appearance. And he looked like a banker, but he really was a deacon in his Baptist church. And I said, oh, really? Well, I belong to a Baptist church. And what Bible do you all read? And I said, that's the same one we use. But I said, now my Bible says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. And it doesn't say only if they look like you. Wow. Then I found out he was a deacon, chairman of the deacon board. And I said, Mr. Craig, you're going to have to explain this to me. You got to stand before the congregation, talk to them about what God wants us to do. Yes. And to talk about the blessings of the good Lord. And you're representing God. Yes. Yes. You got bigotry in your heart. Yes. Yes. And you also have children. Wow. And on Friday, you dress them in those white capes and you go out to do bodily harm. Explain to me how that works. And over time, every day he came to see me. And a lot of his friends, I had one man who was a friend of his called me and said, Miss Clayton, I'd like to take you to lunch. And I said, well, sir, I don't go to lunch with men I don't know. And he said, well, I have to meet you. And I said, well, what's so compelling about meeting me? He said, well, I've been knowing Calvin Craig for 18 years. I've never heard him say anything decent about a black person. Wow. And all he talks about is what a wonderful woman you are. Wow. What a wonderful woman you are. And he said, I want to see if you're really black. And I said, I am black, but I ain't going to lunch with you, so. But I was told that every night at the dinner table, he would tell his family that Miss Clayton is a lovely woman, talking favorably about me. Yes. Well, every Friday we would talk about what we're going to do for the weekend. And I said, oh, I've got a dinner party. And he said, well, who's coming? And I said, I'd name some people. He said, those are white people. I said, I have some white friends. He said, oh, Miss Clayton, I could never eat at your house. And I said, you forgot one thing. I invited these people to my home. I've never invited you to my house. I said, but before this program is over, I'll not only have you eating out of my hands, I'll have you eating at my house. And we laughed about it. So one Friday, he said, well, what are you doing this weekend? And I told him. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I got a surprise, but I can't tell you. And I said, okay, if you can't tell me, I don't know what it is. Well, that Saturday I went shopping, came home, and when I turned into my street, I live on a quiet street, but I saw all these cars look like they were parked in front of my house. The police were there, news cameras were there. And what in the world? Since I live in the hood, I thought I was burglarized, So, and so when I got home, there where they told me what happened, Mr. Craig had held a press conference that day and announced he was coming out of the Klan and credited a black woman with changing his negative attitude. And I was that black woman. Now, the one question that the press asked me then, they still ask me, what do you think did it? I said, well, I'll never know. He's deceased now. But I said, here's what I think happened, Reverend. I said to him, what I'd like to have him do is go home, close his bathroom door, that's a private area, look in the mirror and talk to yourself and ask yourself, I'm a Christian.
Yes.
I love God.
Yes.
And I'm mistreating people. Got bigotry in my heart. What kind of Christian am I? You don't have to give me the answer. Just ask yourself that question.
Yes.
And then I got these little ones I'm carrying with me. So I'm also infusing the next generation with bigotry.
Yes. Wow.
What kind of parent am I?
Wow.
Just ask those questions to yourself. I think that he had to do that. And I think he had some answers, like he was a poor parent and a sure poor example for a Christian. And I think that's what brought him out. But we got invitations. It was one of the biggest stories ever broken. We got invitations all over the world to come to appear on television in Istanbul and all points. And got a great experience for him. He really changed not only his heart, but Dr. King said this, if and when you change a man's heart, then you got a good chance of regulating his behavior.
Oh, wow. Yes.
I think I helped change his heart.
Yes, yes.
And he changed his behavior.
Oh, wow. I love that. Oh, I love that. Wow. Wow. Now and you did that without weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, and not fighting. I mean, I wanted to hit him in the nose. I mean, when he keeps talking about colored people this and colored people that, well, he knew he was trying to bait me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was too smart for that.
Yes.
He wanted to fight.
Yes.
I wanted to change his heart.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I did. I mean, I've heard the ugly names before, so
Yes.
I mean, he didn't know how thick-skinned I was. They called me nigger when I was in college.
Wow.
I heard that.
Wow.
So that wasn't new.
Yes.
A
Wow.
lot of white people call you nigger.
Wow.
But my father said, just because people call you something, that doesn't make it so in your heart.
Yes, yes.
So I wasn't like
Yes.
when they said, black people are lazy. I'm not.
Wow.
Black people smell. I don't. Black people are ignorant. I'm trying to get some education. So
Yeah.
I was none of those things. So I
Yes.
never thought I was ugly in the first place.
Right, yes,
You
wow. Wow. Oh, I love it. Wow. I love it. Wow. Wow. And this grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Calvin Craig, you built relationship with his whole family. I think his daughter was at your 80th celebration, wasn't she?
One day the doorbell rang in my office. Well, the lady had called and said she had to see me. And she gave me a name, but it didn't register at all. She lived in Washington. And so I finally agreed to see her. She came, I opened the door, and she said, I'm Miss whatever, I'm Calvin Craig's daughter. Well, we cried for 30 minutes, because now she's a grown person, and I want to know if she's healthy,
Yes.
and is she bigoted?
Yes.
And to my surprise, that woman said that her father's talking at the dinner table made her attitude, because her mother and grandmothers were all Klans people. And because he said such nice things about me, then she said it must be okay. So she learned to love me before she met me.
Wow.
So we became very good friends. As a matter of fact, we now have people who have written stories about us. And they did a play at the University of Boston about our relationship. And so she's healthy and happy and glad that we, are now friends.
Oh, wow. I think that's remarkable. That is absolutely remarkable. Tell us about some of your moments with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, first I want to tell you how blessed I am and have been to have joined him and lived with him, worked with him. But I want to tell you how I got here. I lived in California, and my husband and I had a comfortable life. And he was the editor of Jet magazine. Well, some of these people too young to know about Jet, but Jet and Ebony was pretty big stuff. And thank you. My husband was a very smart and capable man, and Dr. King was looking for a public relations person, one to help write speeches. But I had met Mrs. King already. I traveled with her on concert tours. So we knew each other, and we were on a concert tour for 11 days, and she said, we women have slept together, lived together, eaten together for 11 days, and we never fell out, so this friendship must be for real. So she wanted me here, and Dr. King wanted my husband, so the two of them put pressure on us to move. They called me in Los Angeles one night and talked for 3 hours and 45 minutes. And one of the things Dr. King said, well, if you'll just move, I'll see that you get a new house, a car, a housekeeper, a dog, and a good paycheck. And guess what? I got none of that. So I said, someone said, how would you describe Dr. King? I said, he's a trickster. He tricked me into moving to Atlanta because I had to buy everything I got. But seriously, the years I was with him, the best years of my life. Because now I not only got a chance to use the skills I already had to try to wipe out bigotry, but I helped him in the movement. And then I ended up, though, the end stories are the best part of this. I ended up being his confidant and her confidant. Now, that's hard to do, or be a man and a wife, a husband and a wife's confidant.
Yeah.
But they trusted me implicitly, and I'm going to tell these people here, when people trust you, make it be for real.
Yes.
Make it be for real.
Yes.
They believed in me and trusted me. So I'm not going to go out and tell anything that's a secret. If some people, can you keep a secret? A lady told me that she called her mother and said, Mom, I got a story you're not going to believe. It's a hot story, but don't tell nobody. Because I told the lady I wasn't going to tell him, but I'm going to tell you. She said, well, wait, honey, before you tell me, let me tell you something. If that story is that hot, what makes you think I'm going to keep it? But, we get these hot stories, and you got to tell somebody. Well, Dr. King, as famous as he was like, any man, everybody else, that he had problems also. He had some things he didn't want to divulge to the nation, but he wanted to talk about them. So that's where I came in as his confidant, and really I say to this that once I met him and started working with the issues, I stayed with him to the very end. The very end meaning his life. I drove him to the airport to go to Memphis, and then when he now was shot and killed, and they had to bring the body back, then I want to tell you one story that makes me say this. On the day he was here in Atlanta for public viewing, just during the funeral week, at 11 o'clock that day, it was in the papers that the public could line up and see him over at the university campus. But at 11 o'clock, we were at Ebenezer because Mrs. King had some last-minute details for the program. But the security called and said, Miss King said there must be 4,000 or 5,000 people out here and has begun to rain, so what must I do? And Mrs. King, who was such a nice, passionate woman, said, oh, well, let him come in. And I whispered to her, no, you should see him first. The public will wait. That's the best advice I could give her, because when we got over there, now, Harry Belafonte and I were the only non-family members. Everybody else was family. When I saw her go up to the bier, she almost fainted. Well, I thought, since I was in the back, I thought it was kind of like the reality. Here he is, deceased in the coffin. So I thought it was the reality of it. But when I got up there, I said, oh my gosh, he looked awful. Awful meaning, he looked as if someone had scooped up a whole handful of clay and slammed it upside his face. He looked awful. And I walked over to him quietly and said, sir, is there anything, I thought as a craftsman, is there anything you can do with this big blob on his face? Loudly and crashly, he said, miss, that's the best I could do. His jaw was blown off. Now, Mrs. King hears that. I was so disappointed. I said, well, forget that crazy man. I'll do something. But I looked over and saw Harry Belafonte's wife, and she was white. And Mama King, who was Martin Luther King's mother, was dark-skinned. Well, in those years, women carried loose powder in their compact, and I assumed that that was the case. So I said, Julie, could I have your powder, if you have some? And she did. Then I asked for Mama King's powder, and she had some. So I'm now standing over the bier, looking at Martin's face, this ugly blob, and I took the powders, the light powder and the dark powder, and made myself a little mixture, and I kept looking at Martin's skin tone to see if I could match it, and it worked. Wow. It gave some evenness to the face, and he looked less horrible. And Mrs. King had a little smile on her face. Well, you may not know this, but the body will oxidize, when the air is, and so I knew that was going to change back to the ugly spot, so I came back at midnight and did it again. And as I was brushing the excess, Harry Belafonte gave me his handkerchief, and we brushed the extra. So I'm standing over this man who's my friend, my former boss, the one I love, the one the nation, because now, the world is here for the funeral. And I'm standing over him, trying to make him look even. And it made a difference. And so I tell people I stayed with Martin Luther King to the very, very end.
Wow, wow. You did a masterful job, too, because my dad took me there. That's one of my earliest memories. Death is so impressionable. He's the first deceased person that I ever laid eyes on. And that image has never left my mind. So you were a masterful makeup artist. No, you did. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you know what? In person to person, Martin Luther King was funny. A lot of people are surprised to know, but he was a good storyteller. And he loved those relaxing moments so he could gather his friends and tell stories. But let me tell you one about me and him. Often when he'd come home off of a trip, he and his wife loved to end their evening with hot tea. It kind of closes the night off for them. So this particular day, I got a telephone call from a girl. There's always somebody out there ready to create trouble. And so the lady said, Miss Clayton, everybody thinks that everybody likes you, but everybody doesn't like you. And I said, well, that's okay, but I didn't know what the point was. Now, years ago, some of you are too young to know, used to have the telephones where you could push a button and the third party can come in, but they don't know they're in,
right.
That kind of. So now she pushed the button and brought a girl in who said, Carol, what was that you said about Xernona's hair? And she said, I'm so sick and tired of seeing her hair pile on top of her head. And she said it's old-fashioned anyway. That's the way people used to wear their hair all piled up. And she said, and I looked at it, and you know what I said today? She said, it reminded me, it looked just like an onion on top of her head. So to me, I just call her onion head. Well, I'm listening to this. So the conversation finally ended. And so we hung up the phone. Now, I used to go to Sunday school every Sunday. Sit up in the Sunday school and listen to the language and the lessons like, don't be concerned what people say about you. Like the people even when they don't like you. Be kind to others when they're not kind to you. Well, that works well in Sunday school. But when you hear somebody on the phone call you onion head because you got a hairstyle. So I got madder and madder. I wanted to go through that phone and punch her in the nose, you know. But then, so now I'm seething with anger. Oh, I wanted to kill her. And couldn't get my hands on her, you know, she's on the telephone. But Dr. King called, and he said, listen, I'm just getting off a plane and I'm on my way home, and so will you come and meet me at my house and have tea with me and Coretta before we all go to bed? And I said, oh, no. He said, well, why not? I said, because I'm in a bad mood. He said, you're never in a bad mood. I said, well, I am now. He said, what happened? I said, oh, this girl's been talking about me and just got through it all the telephone. I went through telling him. But he said, oh, well, you got to come now. He said, as your pastor and your friend, I got to talk to you. You should know better than to be governed by what somebody else says. So now he made me come over. So he said, if you're not there in 10 minutes, I'm coming to get you. Well, I went on over there. So he said, sit down. So we sat at the table. So now, you know, he was never, you know, had a short of the words. He could always talk. So now, Reverend, he's sitting there looking at me, and he said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Getting mad because somebody, you know, it does look like an onion. But I got mad at him then, you know. So they started calling me onion head, you know. But I had many wonderful years.
Oh, wow. I think it's classy and regal. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. Wow. You were the first black woman in the South on television. I think you had a show that originally was called Variations that later became the Xernona Clayton show, a very successful show. You were a trailblazer for the Oprah Winfreys of the world. I'm so glad that you didn't take bragging rights and just say, I'm the only one. You were the first. And you opened the door for others. Now, while you were in Chicago, you had an opportunity to, didn't you and Oprah work in the same place somewhere?
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you how I got there.
Sure.
There was a group of journalists coming to Atlanta for a meeting. They were religious journalists. And Dr. King always talked about how much respect he had for reporters and journalists, that they helped to tell the story, and he was always bragging about how important they were to the movement.
Sure.
Well, Ralph McGill was the publisher of the Atlanta Constitution at that time and was my friend. But he said he liked the way I dealt with race relations, that I teach a lesson without preaching a sermon. That's what he used to say about me.
Wow.
And what he would do is set me up to get into interracial meetings that I didn't know about. For instance, this day, he was scheduled to speak at this journalist conference. But at the last minute, it was all planned that he couldn't come, but I'm sending a substitute.
Wow.
And I was a substitute. But I told those news people that Dr. King respected them highly. And the industry of news and coverage. Mm-hmm. But I said, I don't agree with him. I don't have respect for the industry.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'll give you an example. Here we were in Birmingham and other places where children could not swim in the public swimming pool because they were black. And here at the television station, you got a white program director
Yep.
who gives a story to an assignment editor, white, who gives it to a lily white reporter, who carries with her a lily white photographer,
Wow.
and they go to the scene of the shutout, meaning they're going to tell us how bad this is that these kids are being kept out. And I said, I find very little difference between that shutout and this shutout.
Oh, wow.
You all are shut out also.
Wow.
No
Oh,
black people, all these people are white, going to talk about how bad it is. This also is bad.
wow.
So that was my speech.
Wow.
Well, when I got through, I went back to my office, and Mr. McGill said, "What did you say today?" He said, "Everybody's mad at you." I said, "Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that." I said, "But I just got a call from one of the TV stations, and the guy wanted to take me to lunch." And I said, I'm courageous, so I'm going to go. I said, "But I'm not back in my office by 1:30, put out an APB, because they probably got me." But when I did go to lunch and meet with the management team of Channel 5 was the one that took me to lunch. They said, "You really embarrassed us today,
Wow.
because we hadn't thought of that. You painted the picture
Wow.
that made us look bad,
Wow.
because that's what happened. We are lily white sitting here,
Yeah.
and we want to change, and we need your help." But I thought they were going to ask, because I didn't study television. When people asked me, "Did you study television when you were in college?" They didn't know. They didn't even have no television when I was in college. They still try to get that thing working. But it's very flattering, because they thought I was young, but that's okay. But he said, "We want you to help us." Well, at that time, the talk format was already up and running and doing well. And so they asked me to come up and recommend a format for them. And I said, "Okay, and then who will do it?" They said, "Oh, we have the person who's going to man the operation already." I said, "Oh, okay." They didn't tell me who it was. They said, "We like the way you do things,
Wow.
and we want you to be the host of the show."
Wow.
I said, "Really?" And so I've been on television before, always with some cause or something. And they always write out everything on the floor. My name is Xernona Clayton. And so I went to the station that night and, "Well, where's my name?" They said, "You don't know your name?" I said, "Well, maybe." And so they wrote it out. I never looked. I just said, "Good evening." And I started emoting, looking glamorous, of course. And I brought with me, my housekeeper became a wardrobe assistant, put her on the payroll. The little boy who cut my grass and all the time, he was my driver. And then my neighbor was my makeup artist. So I came with a retinue of people. Well, that's what I heard they do in Hollywood. So I was trying to act like I was from Hollywood. So I brought all these people, and this is my staff. Put them on the payroll, pay them all. And then I asked, did I have the ability then and the freedom to fire? Because see, what had happened at that time, when black people appeared on television, all you saw were the eyes and the teeth.
Wow.
Because you have to change the numbers on the camera at that time.
Right.
There are numbers on the camera that whether it makes you light or dark or whatever. And they would never change it for a black person. So white people looked okay. You could see the delineation of their faces, but black folk, you couldn't. And I said one night, "Could you change the number on my guests?" He said, "It doesn't make a difference." I said, "Hold up." So I made them cut the cameras, stop the rolling.
Yeah.
I said, you are off the camera. You are fired.
Wow.
And what happened to that is that the boss was still here upstairs. It was at nighttime. He was still here. And I said, "Did you mean what you said when I had the ability to fire him? I just fired a guy." But it set the tone.
Yeah.
That nobody else on that show would buck me. I was the producer
Yes.
and the host
Yes.
of my show,
Wow.
in control.
Wow.
And we were deemed a success.
Yes.
So Xernona Clayton, successful entry in television.
Wow.
Well, it went all over the country. And then stations called me from everywhere to come and asked, how do you do it? How do you make a success? Well, I was too polite to say, just open the door. You know, they're outside the door waiting to come in. You just, because they're black, you won't let them in.
Wow.
So open the door, but I didn't say that. So I gave a pontificating response. Well, let me find you some, and we'll bring them in to you, you know. Not really, but but opening the door of opportunity is today my greatest joy.
Wow.
That now you see black people all over the country on television because I opened the door.
Wow. It's amazing. And you interviewed people, you had folks on your show that are just mega heroes to us. Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne. These are legends to us. You had these, so who were some of your favorite guests that you had on the show?
Oh, well, we had, there were so many, but we
Yes.
had Muhammad Ali was a guest one night, and he came on the program, and Ted Turner was my boss at CNN, and he was there sitting in the audience. And Muhammad Ali was holding the award, and he looked so serious. He said, Mr. Turner, I flew in from Germany just to accept this award tonight. And he's talking seriously, and it's a good evening. And he said, but everybody knows you're a billionaire, but it's really clear to me you didn't pay much for this award. Well, Mr. Turner and everybody fell out laughing, just fell out, you know. And it was one of, you know, we had a lot of high moments like that. But you'd
Wow.
expect Muhammad Ali to come up with something like that, but just tore the house down, you know. Just.
Oh, that is
And then one
hilarious.
night, Tucker, you know, he broke the award one night. He was saying, you know, doing this. Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Oh, he's just, you know, this is a wonderful, and he's sweet, and all of a sudden the thing just fell apart. And he said, oh, Lord, Miss Clayton never going to let me come back on it. He went down on the floor and picked up the pieces, and he said, toot, 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 toot. He started using it as a, you know, a trumpet. So, the big people always, and they told me this, that I treated everybody equal. That just because people had fame and fortune, they were no better than anybody else.
Sure.
So I treat everybody the same with dignity,
Yes.
with consideration. The
Yes.
people we have to take care of.
Yes.
We pick them up, you know, send them an airline ticket, pick them up at the airport, bring them in. And this one lady wanted the limousine to stay outside the hotel all night, just in case she might want to go someplace. I said, well, listen, that limousine costs about an hour.
Right.
Now, if she thinks she want to go someplace, she better get a taxi and put it out there. And I didn't let them abuse my kindness.
Yes.
And they rewarded me later by telling me that I treated all of them with respect.
Yes.
But you're not the only one.
Right. Yes. Wow. I love it. Wow. And you obviously made just a tremendous impact on Ted Turner. He, I know, promoted you to Vice President of Urban Affairs, I believe, there. And now tell us, how did you come about your founding the Trumpet Awards?
Well, Reverend, I was tired of watching television, seeing our people act like fools, and making Ebonics our language.
Wow. Yes.
And I wonder, what's wrong with English? You know,
You see why I love this lady?
You know, we live here in America. We speak American English.
Yes.
So we want our children to learn how to speak English.
Yes.
And certainly old folk ought to learn how to do it too. Why be proud of someone and tell them, bim, bam, boom? You know, what's wrong with English? So you watch television. I just got tired of watching them act like buffoons.
Yes.
Knowing all the time that we as a people have been contributing so much.
Yes.
And Dr. King used to say that he didn't believe that all white people hated us because they loved to hate.
Right.
It was his theory that maybe some of them hated us because they just didn't know what we've been doing as a people.
Wow.
So I said, what I wanted to do is show the contributions of our people.
Yes.
And I had very strict rules on my show. Everybody had to speak clear, good, proper English.
Wonderful.
And no profanity at all.
Yes.
None.
Yes.
And my youngsters,
Yes.
I had a lot of young people watching, and somebody said, well, they know more dirty words than anybody. I said, well, they might know them, but they don't have to come here to get them.
Right.
They have to take it someplace else. I want them to see us speaking English.
Yes.
Proper English.
Yes.
Good usage.
Yes.
And then you can hear the stories they're telling.
Yes.
Like, we had just one example, there are too many to give you, but right now, you go to any airport in the world, and if you think you're having a heart attack, or in fact having one, there's a defibrillator in every airport in the world.
Yes.
It was created by a black man.
Wow.
And there he stood on our stage
Wow.
saying, here, I'm the one.
Wow.
Nobody knew this.
Yes.
When I said nobody, I mean very few people knew it. But I heard from a white woman. She said she was from Mid-America. And she said, I grew up hating all black people because my parents, a mother and a father, we always think that, single parenting ain't no good. And my philosophy always is one good one is better than two no good ones. And so this woman had two parents, a mother and a father, and they said, colored people are all lazy. She said she was taught by them all black people were lazy. All black men would rather stand in line to get a welfare check than get a paycheck.
Wow.
All black women would rather have a baby than have a job.
Wow.
So she grew up hating all of us because we're siphoning from the coffers. She said, and I happened to see the Trumpet Awards.
Wow. Wow.
Seeing people, the man, there was a time when we couldn't preserve blood. And so if you go to the hospital and you're sick and going to die and there's no blood there, you're going to die. Well, this man came up with a system for preserving blood. You could put it in the hospital so whenever you need it, it's there. He went to a medical convention in Florida. On his way home back to Chicago, he had a serious accident in South Carolina. The accident was serious enough that his life was threatened, and he needed blood to save his life. When they found out he was black, they wouldn't give him any, and he died. He didn't preserve the blood for himself or his colored family or his colored neighbors. Anybody to this day,
Yes.
anybody who needs blood can get it if you're a hospital, and now I guess most hospitals have it. But he designed the system
Absolutely.
and then lost his life.
Absolutely. Dr. Charles Drew. Absolutely.
Dr. Drew, that's right. So you see, we as a people have been contributing to the goodness of America
Yes.
without regard to our personal families, ourselves, and our friends and our neighbors, but anybody.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of our contribution. But we had hundreds of stories like that, hundreds of stories. You go out there now, there's a traffic light out there
Yes.
designed by a black man.
Yes.
How could we make it without traffic light?
Right. Yes.
And I could just go on and on and on. We had so many rich stories that we're not through telling them yet.
Yes.
So that was the success of my Trumpet Awards. And I saw my graphic design as the trumpet because I thought always the trumpet is long and graceful.
Yes.
And you can't blow a trumpet quietly
Yeah, right.
unless you mute it,
Yeah.
because it just automatically is a loud instrument. So
Yes.
I wanted to tell the story loudly and
Yes.
clearly
Yes.
that we as African Americans have been here in servitude, but still contributing to the success of everybody who lives and breathes. And that's our story.
Wow. We thank you so much for that. Wow. Thank you for refusing to lower your standards when others refuse to raise theirs. Thank you for telling the story of the achievements of African Americans to this country, and you've created some wonderful role models for men and women, just for humanity, just the contribution. So thank you so much. And my family has been blessed to be a recipient of one of the Trumpet Awards. It's one of my prized possessions. It really, really is. Thank you so much, so incredibly much. Wow.
But Reverend, that was a special moment for us too, to see all of you boys who are now men. And I looked at you because I was one of the ones who was privileged to know some of your beginnings.
Yes.
That although this is very impressive, I'm very proud of the successes of all of you. But I'm not surprised.
Wow.
Because people forget, when you bring children into the world, you owe them. You owe them an education in the right direction.
Yes. Wow.
You owe them discipline. You don't have to be their friend. People don't want to be his friend. You don't need to be your kid's friend.
Right.
Be his teacher.
Yes.
And his disciplinarian. So they'll grow up to be men and women with verve and vitality.
Yes.
And a yen to be somebody.
Yes.
So I'm not surprised, because your father, and I knew him best for so long, and your mother, how blessed you all were to be born in that household.
Yes. Yes.
That you had to succeed.
Yes.
Because it was in you to do that.
Yes.
And that's what each of us ought to do. If we bring children into the world, we ought to make the environment so worthy
Yes.
of success and achievement, and let them then go on their own. And so I'm proud to know you.
Oh, I so love it. Thank you. Oh, wow. My. Wow. One final question that I want to ask is...
How many questions you got? They told me you want to do a little interview. This is a documentary. Am I getting paid for this?
I got a little something for you. Wow. But what advice would you give to a young person who wants to get in television and make a difference?
Oh, I got lots of answers for that. First, if you stay ready,
Yes.
you don't have to get ready.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
You don't have to be governed by what someone else thinks you are. Know for yourself who you are.
Yes.
And you can be secure in that and then proceed.
Yes.
And then I want people to know that God gave each of us the supreme gift,
Yes.
which is life.
Yes.
We can pay him back by the quality of the life we live. Make it a good life,
Yes.
so God can thank you for the gift he's given you.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much to be done in our society. There are homeless people, hungry people,
Yes.
poor people. And if you got any blessing at all, have a heart of sharing.
Yes.
Do as much as you can, as often as you can, as long as you can, but never sit on your can. That's my message.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh. Well, you thank our wonderful guest, Ms. Xernona Clayton. Wow, what a gift to this country. What a gift to our people. Thank you, thank you, thank you for who you are. Thank you for doors that you've opened for others.
I love a handsome man, I tell you. The success, too, my goodness. And look at these shoes, he's well dressed. Well heeled, well heeled.